Hello everybody, my name is Ethan. Welcome back to the channel where today we are going to be going over the second part of methods. So in the previous episode, which would be episode 3, we covered method calls and method inputs. So in that we kind of learned what are methods, what kind of goes into creating a method in C#. And then we also learned about parameters, which are little additions we can add to our methods to make them a little bit more complex, add a bit of layering to them. And in today's video, we are going to do part 2 of this 2-part method series on methods, of course. And we're going to be in this video talking about output specifically. Afterwards, we are going to, again, learn about method outputs, but we are going to have a methods quiz and then 2 methods projects. So hopefully this video ends up turning out pretty nice. It is going to be a lot lighter out in this video. In the previous video, I did it about 30 minutes before sunset, so we ended up having my face get progressively darker and darker. Today, we're going to be radiating just as we should be, right? So let's just get into it right away. No more stalling. Let's learn about some method outputs. So what is the outcome of calling a method? Sometimes a message is printed to the console, right? Sometimes a value is returned. Sometimes a variable is altered. If you don't understand all the code examples, that's okay, but at the end of the lesson, you'll be able to define methods with output using return and out keywords and recognize and resolve errors related to method output. Let's try running this code, see what ends up happening. So if you remember in the previous one, we kind of had this visit planets method that we were creating, and it was going to be outputting a message that kind of told us something based on the inputs that we put in. So in this one, we say your pet's Lakia? Laika? I don't know. Your pets Laika and Albert will be joining your voyage across space. Welcome back, brave cosmonaut. You visited 8 new planets and experienced a G-force of 4.2 G. Okay, so return. The basic way to return values from a method is to use a return statement. A well-constructed programming language shouldn't have a lot of surprises. Let's start with an example in the below code. It contains a definition of the yell method, which returns a string and calls that method into main. When we execute the program, the code in main runs first. Yell is called. In yell, the uppercase version of who's there is created and returned. Back in main, the return value is stored in the variable output and then printed into the console. So again, we have first this definition of yell. It will return phrase.toUpper. And then we have public static void main, where we have a string output, yells who's there, and then prints that output, right? Here's a more generic definition. The keyword return tells the computer to exit the method and return a value to wherever the method was called. When a method is declared, it must announce a type of a value it will return. In this case, yell returns a string, so it has a string modifier right before the name yell. So if we go back up here, we can see we are categorizing what data type we will be returning with our method, right? So we initiate it as a string method. Note, a built-in error CS0161. At this step, notifying you the method should return a string. In the next step, you will add a required return statement. So first, we'll define a static method, decorate planet, that takes a planet name as input and returns a fancy welcome to the planet. So again, we are going to start off by creating a static method, and it's going to return a fancy welcome to the planet. So I assume it's going to return a string here, and we are going to name our method as decorate planet. Then we'll open up our method, and it says inside it should return. So if we put in here return, and we want to do something similar up here to where we're going to return what we have inside, right? Takes a planet name as input. So if we do string planet name, we can then return a fancy welcome to the planet. Return, first write a string parameter and return a string. Note a built-in error. Okay, because we're not actually putting a return statement yet. We're just doing this right now, I believe. So we've kind of done what they've asked, right? We've created a new static method that is a string method that will have just one parameter at this point, which is just planet name. Planet name is an input. Yep. Okay. So I'm going to run it now. And we should be getting an error called error CS0161, and that's exactly what we get, which is perfectly fine. We were expecting that, and that's because we haven't put a return statement in to this method call. So we'll write the method body so that it returns a fancy welcome to the planet using string interpolation. For example, calling, right? So should return welcome to blank, right? So we are going to return the string, and we'll do string interpolation by adding that $sign at the beginning, and we'll do this interesting little pattern that they have of the dots and stars, welcome to, and then we'll add in our planet name, and then we'll again also add those star period, just a fun little design is what it looks like, right? So let's run that, see if I did that correctly. It doesn't look like I did that correctly. So we want to, you'll need to use string interpolation in the body method, which requires, yep, in this case, yep. It looks like I'm doing everything correct. Use a return statement and string interpolation within the method body. Okay. Let's take a peek at the solution and see what I'm doing wrong here, just to see. It wants us. Okay. Oh, that's a very unfortunate error. First error of the day, you know what I mean? Let's do something like that to hopefully fix the error that we had. I probably should have just looked in the top right console to see what the error was. You should do the same if that happens. We are going to remember our semicolons today, I promise. Let's get rid of that hint there. And now we're going to call the method with the argument Jupiter in main. So we, again, will do decorate planet. And we will use the string Jupiter within it. And hopefully that print to the console. We didn't do a console.write line, so I think instead what we'll do is we'll do a console.write line and wrap that within there, and so hopefully that ends up working. Yep, that ends up working. We end up getting our kind of nice funky design here and our welcome to Jupiter, again using that string interpolation. Cool. So a little bit of a slip up just because I am horrible at remembering the semicolons. I will get there, I promise. We will do this. All right, let's learn about return errors. As we mentioned before, we don't like surprises. They lead to mistakes. So when we call a method, we'd like to know what type of value will be returned. This is done in the method definition. The method definition must contain the type of return value. If a method returns an integer, it must return, or its return type must be int. If it returns text, it must be string, and so on. If the method returns nothing, use void. If a method returns a type different from its stated return type, it will throw an error. Here are some common errors you might see. This error means you must state a return type before the method name. Error CS1520, method must have a return type. This error means that your method doesn't return a value when it should. Error CS0161, method name, not all code paths return a value. In some cases, this error means that your method should return a string when it should be an int. This one can be caused by a lot of things outside of methods. Cannot implicitly convert string to int. Okay, so let's scroll down and look at the instructions. This code has a bunch of errors. Run the code to find them. So we're going to click run here, and we should end up seeing some errors here. So the first one says method must have a return type, and it's kind of showing it here on line 16. So when I go to line 16, it looks like there is no specified return type. And so when I look at the return type, I see a big string right here. So I am going to enter in the kind of keyword there, string, and I'm going to rerun it. So we fixed the first error. The second error, though, is looking like it is on line 21. It says error CS0161 program.isPluto dwarf. Not all code paths return a value. So we're going to add a return statement to one of the methods. So instead here we are going to add that return keyword in there, and hopefully that works. Perfect. And finally, we have one more invalid expression term bool. And so right here, it says line 23. So in turn 20, fix the error by changing the return type of one of the methods. So I feel like the one that it's trying to hint me at here is definitely this one, where it's an int, but it's returning that string there. I'm also getting an error within a couple of different things. On line 23, it wants to do something. Let's click run and see if that's the error that ended up fixed. It didn't. So let's see what it wanted me to do. Count the planets. Fix the error by changing the return type. So that's exactly what I did, and that's fine. Let's take a peek under the hood here and see the solution. Instead, it wants me to return answer, which is fine. So it wanted me to fix this. I kind of just slapped this in front of it, but that's not actually what you want to do. Instead, we are going to use return answer here, and hopefully that fixes all the errors that we have on this slide. Yeah, it looks like that ended up working. I tried to return bool answer equals true. Obviously, that's kind of a line of code that we don't want to return, so instead just returning that answer should work fine. Nice. Okay, so we learned about return. Let's learn about out now. A method can only return one value, but sometimes you need to output two pieces of information. Calling a method that uses an out parameter is one of the ways to return multiple values. For example, the int32.tryParse method tries to parse its integer or its input as an integer. If it can properly parse the input, the method returns true and sets its out variable to the new value. If it cannot properly parse the input, the method returns false and sets the out variable to 0. So this is what the method's signature looks like. The method returns a Boolean and accepts a string and variable that has been declared of type int as input. Here's how int32.tryParse and the out parameter are used. So we initialize a variable as an int that's known as number. We'll then get another variable known as success that is a Boolean variable, and we'll use this int.32.tryParse, and we'll again use this out function here within the parameter area. So since this is a number, we can convert it to an integer 32. It's going to be successful and be true, and the out number is going to be this 10,602. Now, if we tried that exact same expression on 3 exclamation points, obviously that's not a number. We are going to end up getting a false, and the return value, or I shouldn't say the return value, the out value would be 0. The second parameter is labeled out, which means it must be assigned a value within the method. For a shortcut, you can declare the int variable within the method call. So bool success equals int32.tryParse, right there. All right, let's parse another string, age as string, to an integer. First, define an int named age as int and a bool named outcome. So in here, I will kind of open up this main area and define a new variable known as age as int and a bool variable named outcome. In the second step, we're going to use int32tryParse to convert age as string. Age as int should be used as the out argument. Outcome should capture the returned value. So we will first do, if we kind of look at how int.30 or int32.tryparse works, what we will do is use int32 to convert age as string. So I believe if we do int32.tryparse, and the first part of it we'll use is age as string, and then in the second one we'll use the out variable as outcome, and we'll see if that ends up working. I'm a little cautious. I don't know if this exactly will work. I feel like I am missing something. And store the result in outcome. I see. So let's press another string. Outcome should capture the returned value. Oh, sorry. Age, I see. Age as int should be used as the out argument. That's exactly what it says right here. And it wants us to capture the value in outcome here. So I believe now we've kind of fixed that error, and hoping that ends up working. It does. I don't see any errors, and we did get a blue check mark on the right hand side here. Let's scroll down. We are going to print outcome and age as int to the console. So first we'll do outcome. Oh, and we can, I guess, also do console.writeLine. And of course, it's going to kick me out of the typing because I hit the enter button. Love it. Let's try this instead now. All right, we've printed both. And it returns a value of true, which is nice, and then it is going to tell us our age as an integer, which in this case is 102. So it converted this string 102 to an integer 102, and we've stored the value of that 102 age as int in the age as int, and we have found our outcome. Did it work? And we've stored that Boolean expression, right, true, inside of it. So we're going to repeat the process with name as string. We're going to define a int named name as int. We'll define a bool named outcome2. Then we are going to use int32.tryparse to convert name as string. It's telling us that outcome2 should capture the return value. It's saying that we'll int 32 and we do the tryparse method. And inside of the method here, we should have a couple of things. The first parameter should be name as int, or sorry, this should be the out argument. But before that, we are going to have name as string. Right? And then we'll do the same thing, print the return value of out variable to the console. So instead, what I guess I won't copy paste. We'll write it out today. We'll be thorough in what we are doing. We'll do outcome2 and console.writeLine name as int. So in this case, it shouldn't work because we're trying to convert a string to an integer, which just doesn't work. We're trying to convert letters, I should say, right? It works when the string is numbers, right? 102. When the string is granny, it's hard to convert granny to an integer. That just doesn't work. So that's why we capture that the outcome 2 is false and the return value is 0. Exactly what we want. Okay, using out. We can use out parameters in our own methods as well. In this example, yell converts phrase to uppercase and sets a Boolean variable to true. So in this, we have a string method, a method that's named yell that returns a string variable. It has two parameters. The first one is a phrase, and then it has an out parameter that is a Boolean expression, was yell called. Was yell called is equal to true, and it will return phrase to upper. The out parameter must have the out keyword and its expected type. The out parameter must be set to a value before method ends. When calling the method, don't forget to use the out keyword as well. So when we do string message equals gar, yell message out bool flag, right? Okay, so let's try this out. We're going to define a new method here called whisper. So I'll start it off by doing static, and it should return a string. So we're going to have it be a string, and then we have whisper. It should have a string parameter and an out bool parameter. So the first one I will do is a string parameter known as, it doesn't actually tell us what we want the name to be, but I'm going to kind of measure it after the yell one. Obviously it's going to be something maybe the opposite of yell as it is whisper. So I'll do phrase, and then we'll do an out Boolean expression parameter was whisper called. So now within this method, we don't have anything within the method, so we should get an error here, but we pass over here. We need we must have a return value since we are saying that there is a string return, right? So define the method body. Whisper should work like yell, but instead of returning an uppercase letter or uppercase string, it returns a lowercase string. So we want to kind of make it similar to the yell message, so we can kind of see was yell called, right? So we'll do first was whisper called, and we'll set that equal to true. And in the second one, we are going to return phrase.to lower. And I'm hoping that that ends up working quite nicely for us. We have now kind of filled out the body of our whisper method. Now we're going to call whisper in the main method and print the return value to the console. Make sure to use an out modifier when calling the method. So in the main here, we are going to do, let me see, and flag is true. Yep, okay, perfect, this is fine. So we're going to call it within the main method. So we will do a call of whisper. And inside, we're going to use our phrase, DMX monkey is the goat. And in the second argument, we are going to put our out bool variable as flag. And hopefully I did that right. I didn't because I forgot. And I forgot a semicolon, guys. Gotta remember those semicolons. They are pesky. And hopefully it looks like that worked. Now let's take a view at the solution just to make sure that I did that correctly. It looks like it wanted us to do something a little bit different within our thing so that we print it out to the console. So what we can do is either wrap this in a console.writeLine, which is what I would prefer to do just because then it's all in just one line of code. Very easy to also do it in multiple lines of code. Let's print it out of the console and we whisper it because now it's all in lowercase, right? So DMX monkey's the goat. Shouldn't be whispering that, but it's okay. Okay, let's look at some out errors. As with return, out is a very useful keyword, but it can lead to errors if used incorrectly. Here are two common errors. This error means that the out parameter needs to be assigned a value within a method. Error CS0177, the out parameter's success must be assigned to before control leaves the current method. This error means that you called a method that expects an out parameter, but you didn't use the out keyword when calling it. Argument 2 must be passed with the out keyword. Okay, let's see. In this instruction, it says this code has a bunch of errors. Run the code and find them. So let's run the code here. We will notice, yep, we do indeed have a lot of errors. In the first one, it's saying fix the first error by using out when calling whisper. So if we go within our call of whisper, it looks like we are missing a out call. So we'll do out bool. Just to make sure that we are consistent with naming our variables. Looks like we fixed the first error here, and we can fix the second error by assigning the value of the out parameter was Whisper called in the method body of Whisper. So if we go into the method body of Whisper, we actually have to do something with this out variable here. So in this case, we are going to just set was Whisper called equal to true. And I'm hoping that that fixes our entire statement. And it looks like it did, but a local variable named marker. I see. So I did not need to put this bool variable here. And the reason why is because right here we've already determined that marker is a bool variable. So now if I click run, we should be all right. Yep, it's going to print just that gar into it. So it changes it from lowercase to, or uppercase, sorry, to lowercase. All right. Let's review. So we learned a couple of different important things in this lesson. So congrats on finishing. You can now use and define methods with output. Here is what else you've learned in this lesson. Method return values with the return keyword. Every method has a return type designated in its own method signature. That type must match the type of a value actually returned. If a method returns no type, its return type is void. Out parameters can be used to return multiple values from a method, and you can always review this material on the Microsoft documentation. So we have a couple of little review problems here. First, make sure you know how to apply all these concepts before moving on. Call decorate planet with the argument destination. Store the return value in a variable named welcome message. So we're going to go inside of this, and we are going to call decorate planets, but we are going to store the return value in the variable welcome message. So we'll define welcome message. And if you notice, I'm not putting string in front of it, and that's because there is already a definition for welcome message as a string, so I don't have to reiterate myself and repeat myself that it is a string. So we will use that decorate plants, decorate planet function, and it says that there is one argument named destination. So we'll use destination. If we look into the welcome message or decorate planet, it should say string planet, and we want a destination. So we'll do DMX monkey homeworld. Perfect. And we want to store it in welcome message. So hopefully that ends up working quite nicely. Decorate planet with the argument destination. You used, with the argument destination. So it wants me to use Neptune here. I see. I kind of overstepped my bounds there by trying to put my own string within there. So we'll just put destination instead. We're now going to call int32 try parse using galaxy string and galaxy int as arguments. Store the return value in the variable outcome. So in this one, we are going to do another one where we return outcome. It's going to use that int32 try parse function that we used a couple of times. We're going to use galaxy string as the first argument, and then we're going to use the out galaxy int. Right? Hopefully, yep, so we just got an error because we're not yet using outcome. It says expected semicolon, so hopefully you guys remember it more than I do. That's what happens when you use Python first, and it looks like we've done it correctly, so pretty excited about that. Okay, I think we have finished that lesson, and we are now on to the quiz. So why will this code throw an error? So we have public static string, combine words, string A plus string B. A and B are not defined outside the method body. You cannot use plus with strings. String is not a valid return type, and combine words is not a valid method name. So I'm going to immediately knock off the bottom two, right? String is definitely a valid return type, and combine words is surely a valid method name. If we look in here, we can see that console.writeLine wants us to return A plus B. Since A is just defined within being a parameter, again, if you remember back to my previous lesson, when we do this, we're thinking about them as placeholders, right? If you try to print out the value of a placeholder, you'll just be printing nothing. So that's going to throw an error. So I'm going to say that the first option is the correct answer. And that's right. You can only use A and B within a method. Again, if you want to learn a little bit more about that, scope is going to be what you're going to want to look at. Define method. So a method, is it a data type? That's a little too broad for me. Any operator in C#, a reusable set of instructions that performs a specific task, or the code inside curly braces. So personally, I'm going to say it's number 3, and that is going to be correct. We can use methods multiple times, and it's going to perform the same task with different parameters, whatever we put in. Perfect. So what's going to be printed to the console? So we have a couple things. The first one, we have a main argument or a main method that is simply going to print out the value of spacesuit with just 0 arguments. So we have 2 of a kind of duplicate method. So we have a spacesuit when there's 1 argument or parameter, and a spacesuit method with 0. So in this one, we are only calling it with 0, or we are calling it with 0 arguments or parameters. So I'm going to assume we're going to end up using this method instead of using this one. So when I look at this one, it's going to return the value, here's a spacesuit. So when I print out that, it should print out, here's a spacesuit to the console. So if I look out, looks like number 4 kind of matches what I thought was going to happen. Let's click there, and that is correct. Correct. The second overload is used because spacesuit was called with no arguments. Cool. The main method is executed when, anytime a method is called, when you save your code, the application is started, when there is an error. So I'm going to say it's anytime we save our code. When we click that run button, we're saving our code and it runs the main method. That's how it knows to send us any errors and stuff like that. So let's click that one. Actually, it's when the application is started. The application must run for any method to be executed. That makes sense. The thing about Codecademy is the fact that the run button kind of does multiple things, where it saves the code and then it executes it. So I suppose that when we clicked the run button, just because we saved our code doesn't mean that the main method is executed. It's when the application's actually started. So again, in Codecademy, whenever you see me click that run button, it actually means that I am saving all of the code and then executing it. But the main method's only executed really when the application is started. That makes sense. Return an all caps string, i.e. hello. So we have a string here. We're going to use a method. I'm going to use the dot to upper method, and remember to use the parentheses because I want to call that method. So let's check our answer here. Looks like we got that one. That one was pretty easy. What will be printed to the console? So we have a main method, which is going to have a console.writeLine. It's going to have 2 methods, it looks like here. The first one is launch. Or sorry, not 2 methods. It's just going to have 1 method. The method is launch. And in launch, it wants us to first use the keyword argument, or kind of stated argument of launch word equals blast off. And when we run launch, it's going to do the countdown and then launch word, right? So it will print out, if I'm looking at it, when we use this string interpolation here, we have countdown. The countdown is going to stay the same as 3, 2, 1, but we're not going to be printing out liftoff. We're going to be printing out blast off. So it should be 3, 2, 1, ... blast off. And I'm going to say that this one is the correct answer. Perfect. Correct. The countdown parameter is set to 3, 2, 1 by default, and launch word is set to blast off. Okay, in this code, what is the argument? So convert.toInt32x, what is the argument? So in this case, I am going to say that x is the argument, and that makes sense because x is the value passed into the method, right? In this case, the method is convert.toInt32. So the argument, or the parameter that we've put in, is that x, right? Why will this code throw an error? Public static void % difference. Well, first and foremost, I can kind of see it right off the bat. Our return value is void. Typically when you see void, that means a return value of nothing, but we're also trying to return something. So I'm going to say that the return type is wrong. Return is not a valid keyword. That's not correct. The curly braces are in the wrong place. They're in the right place, and methods cannot take a double as an input. That's just not correct. So I'm going to say the return type is wrong. What will be printed to the console? Public static void main. So we have our main argument here. Console.WriteLine, we're going to use the method cite and use the argument Donna. So we have a string variable. So, yep, it looks like it will print Donna saw a meteor. So I believe number 2 is my favorite answer, and that is correct. The viewer parameter is set to Donna, and the space thing is set to meteor by default, right? We have that default argument because we set it within the method definition. Call the method score within the main method. So we are just going to try and call the method of score. In this case, it just prints out the value of, or prints out the string goal. So I think all we have to do is just call it like this. Perfect. Write a method declaration that accepts one out parameter of type string. It should not return any value. So since it says it should not return any value, that means it should be a void method, because we don't want it to return any value. But we want a one parameter, so we'll try it as an out, and it wanted us to have it as a string. So let's check that answer. Perfect, we got that one correct. Find the minimum of int variables a and b. Assume they are already defined in the code. Let's read that one more time just to make sure I'm getting that correct. Find the minimum of int variables a and b. Assume that they are already defined in the code, right? So we'll start by using our math min method. This will find the lower of 2 variables, and we'll do that by separating a and b. Hopefully that works nicely, and it does. All right, last question here. Which line is the method declaration on? So what line is the method declaration on? So it looks like it would be on line 1 here with static int add 2, because that's where we're defining the method. I'm going to go for that one. Yeah, correct. The method declaration includes the input and output types of the method and the method name. Okay, cool. So we did pretty good on that test. We got a 92%. We had one mistake there, but it's just a little bit of a kind of a brain thing that you have to think about with how Codecademy uses the run button. So hopefully that made sense. Let's continue. We have plenty of time to cover these next 2 projects here. The first one is going to be architect arithmetic. So actually, yep, architect arithmetic, perfect. Architects have big ideas, but big ideas can be expensive. How expensive depends on the size. In this project, you'll use methods to build a program that calculates the material costs for any architect's floor plan. For example, the floor plan of the Pantheon in Rome, Italy. So in this one, we will combine approximately broken down into circles and rectangles. Using basic formulas, we can calculate the area of each shape and find the total. You'll be defining area methods like circle and rect, but we'll provide the formulas for you to use. Finally, we'll multiply the total area of each cost using flooring material. Let's assume that the tiles cost 100 euros. I assume that might be pound. I actually don't know what currency that is. I am from the States, so I'm uneducated. It says this is the lira, the Turkish lira. My apologies to the Turkish people of the world that are watching this video. I am unfamiliar with your game. So we will say that each of them costs 100 lira. I hope I'm still pronouncing that right. Although the floor plan isn't exactly one circle and rectangle, this approximation is good enough for estimating costs. Let's get started. Okay, so we have a bunch of steps here that we'll have to do to get done. Let's start off with step number 1. we'll need to define a method for each basic shape. Let's start with rectangles. So we're going to get outside of the the main method, and we're going to get a new method. Define a method with two parameters, length and width, that returns the area of a triangle. Here's the formula for an area of a triangle. For all numbers in this project, use double data type. Okay. Define a method with two parameters that returns the area of a triangle. Okay, perfect. So we are going to start off by doing static, and then we'll want to return a double variable. And in this case, we are going to define it as rect or rectangle. I think it wanted me to use just rect. In this case, we're going to have two variables. The first one is going to be a double variable named length, and the second one is going to be another double variable named width. In this method, it will return length times, not hashtag, but length times width. Actually, here's what I'm going to do. Just in case I get this a little bit wrong, I am going to just do something like this, where I first define a double variable named area and set that equal to length times width, and then just return area. So hopefully that works a little bit better, just to be very clear on what I am doing within this method. And I believe that's step one done. We have created that one. So now we're going to do the exact same thing, but instead of rectangles, we are going to do a circle method. So now circles. Define a method with one parameter, radius, that returns the area of a circle. So again, we are going to use a static double, and I believe it just wanted me to use kind of, I guess, circle, the full word circle. And it only is going to have one parameter, and that is going to be radius. And we'll open that method up, and inside we want to create another variable named area that's equal to, use math.pi to represent the number pi, and math.pow to square the radius. So we'll do math.pi times math.pow, and I believe when we do math.pow, we'll first do the radius, and then we'll do the number 2. We'll kind of hard code that because we're saying we're raising it to the power of 2. I believe that's how the math.pow argument works. I am going to just click gets. Nope, not going to be helpful. So after that, of course, we are going to return area, right? And hopefully I have defined both double and rect. I am going to save this just to see if we get any errors. Doesn't look like we get any errors right off the bat, so that's good. We'll also need triangles to find a method with two parameters, bottom and height, that returns the area of a triangle. So again, we'll do another method. Again, static, double. In this case, we'll do triangle. And we are going to have two parameters. The first one is going to be a double that is known as bottom, and a second double that is known as height. Then we will open this method up. In the first line, we will define area as 0.5 times bottom times height, right? So after that, of course, we will return the value of area. So I'm hoping that that does exactly what we want it to do. We've now done triangles. Let's test that our method works with these cases. So inside of main, we are going to call each one of our methods. The first one we'll do is a console.write line, and we will print out the value of rect, with the first one having a length of 4 and a width of 5. That should have an area of 20 if we're doing that correctly. And of course, we are going to be very consistent and remember that we have to put our semicolons. Next, we're going to do a circle call. In this case, though, we just want to do a radius of 4. And finally, we should have a triangle method that should have 2. In this case, we want to do a base of 10 and a height of 9. Let's just peek. If we click save, hopefully we have done this correctly. And it's not printing to the console here, which is a little bit of alarming. Don't forget that you need to use .NET Run. .NET Run. If I do .NET Run now, okay, perfect. It does end up putting the values that we want. It says an area of 20, perfect. An area of about 50, that's exactly what we get, and then an area of 45. So right now we're looking pretty good with our first 4 steps. Second step is going to be calculating cost. So we're going to find the area of the floor plan. We'll use an adapted version of the ancient city in Mexico. I'm not even going to try, which you can see as an image to the right. So we have an image to the right here. On paper or in your head, break down the floor plan using circles, rectangles, and triangles. So we have a circle here, right? A rectangle here, and then a triangle here. Calculate the area of each part, add them together, and store them, the results, in a variable. So, in this case, they want us to kind of break it down. I am not going to try to attempt to find the exact area of this. I'm just going to do one rectangle here. We have one big rectangle, one triangle, and then one circle. But in this case, it's half of a circle, it looks like. So we'll just multiply this by 1/2. Hopefully that ends up being what we want. So in this case, we want to go ahead and create a new area for we're going to create a couple new variables. First and foremost, I'll create a variable that is a double variable named, I'm going to just call it TO, and we'll do TO triangle first, and we'll be very consistent with how we name our variables, and we'll set that equal to the value of triangle with the value of 500, and multiply the total area and cost by floor 18 meters. Okay, yeah. So I'm going to assume it's 180 Mexican pesos per meter. So we have 500 times 750. Then we're going to create another one called TO rect for rectangle, short for rectangle. And in this one, we'll use the rect method with a value of 2,500 and a length or width of 1,500. Finally, we'll do a third one called TO half circle. And we'll set that equal to 0.5 times circle. Again, it's just because it's a half circle. It's only sticking out just a little bit there. And it has a radius, though, of... Actually, I'm not 100% sure that looks like. I'm just going to pretend that they... Oh, okay. I assume that when they put 375 on this dark, fully shaded inline, that means it's the radius. It also looks like it's pointing to this full line, which of course would be the diameter, or half of the radius, right? Or I should say 2 radius is equal to the diameter. But in this case, I'm just going to keep it easy and say that it's 375. Let's not overthink things. Finally, we'll do a double named TO full area. And we're going to add together TO triangle plus TO rect plus TO half circle. All right, we've calculated the area of each part and stored the result in a variable. We'll save that for right now. Multiply the total area by the cost of the flooring material, 180 Mexican pesos, and store the results. So we'll do that in a variable called a double variable called TO full cost, and we'll multiply that by 180 times TO full area, and write the result to the console explaining what the number means using string interpolation. Perfect. Okay, so in this case, we'll do a console.write line and TO explanation. So now we'll create a new string variable called TO or TO explanation, and we'll say that first, using again string interpolation by adding that $sign in front, we'll say the area of, and this time I'll actually spell it out, is, and then we'll put TO full area to of the flooring material is, and then we'll add TO full cost. Okay, and hopefully I have done that correctly. Let's save this now, and we'll do a nice little .NET run and see if that ended up working for us. The name TO triangle does not exist in the current context. So it's because I ended up misspelling here. So TO triangle, right? We want a TO triangle. So let's resave this and then redo .NET run, and hopefully no more typos from me on this end, and we can just get on with it. So perfect. We have our first original 3 things that I had printed out with this console.write line, just testing our stuff there. And then we have a little explanation of this saying the area of TO is blah, blah, blah. And the flooring, I should just add is meters, and the cost is Mexican pesos. Okay, so I am going to save this and just quickly restart it so that we're not lagging so much, as for some reason when I run the .NET run it ends up lagging quite a lot. We'll have to scroll down just a bit, and we finish that. Peso should only have 2 decimal places, so use a built-in method to round the value. I believe that is just using math.round. So we will say that full TO cost, we'll add this math.round, and we'll do that and add a second argument that just has 2, and we'll save that. All right, for an extra challenge, determine the cost of the Taj Mahal, India, right? We could also do something else. If you guys want to, okay, for an extra challenge, okay. So if you want to do that, that would be perfectly fine. Let's click save, and we're going to run it one more time to see how our program runs. The area of this is about, what, 4,158,393 meters, and the cost of the flooring material is that much Mexican pesos. So that's that project done. I think we did pretty well on that project, and we can move on to the second one. All right, Exquisite Corpse. In the game Exquisite Corpse, participants either draw a head, body, or feet of a creature. The player don't know how their part body connects to the other two until the drawing is finished and revealed. For this project, you'll write a program that mimics the Exquisite Corpse game. Using methods, you'll be able to randomly combine different parts of the ASCII characters so they create a new creature. If you get stuck or would like to see an experienced programmer tackle this project, click help for a walkthrough video. So we have a bunch of steps for this one, but we should just get right into it. So first, let's take a look at the program here. I'm not sure what that is right there. You'll notice that we've already defined 9 methods, 3 creatures broken up into 3 different parts, head, body, feet. We can call a combination of these methods to build various creatures. Test this out by calling the following method in main. We'll start by doing monster head. Oh, don't want to add an argument there. It wants us to add ghost, body, and bug feet. And we'll save the program, and then once it's saved, we'll do .NET run. When we do that, it makes this crazy looking thing in our... It looks like a goblin. I don't know if you guys can see that. I don't know why on... That's very interesting. On my screen, it looks completely white, but then in the recording software, it looks like it has some color to it. I guess we'll have to check that out and see in the recording if that's still a thing. Okay, what if we could automate this process? Rather than manually calling 3 methods for each body part, we can create one method that combines those calls for us. That way we can easily swap out different creatures and quickly create a lot of different combinations. After the main method, we are going to create a method called build a creature that has 3 string parameters, each the different parts of the body. So we will start by doing static. For right now, I'll say it as a void, but later on, we may end up using a different return value. The first one we will do is a string, and it should be head. Then we'll have a string as body, and finally a string as, what did we say, feet? Okay, feet. We'll open that method up. When we eventually call the build the creature method, we'll pass the names of the creatures as arguments to tell the body or tell the method which parts of the creature we will select. It will look something like this: bug, monster, ghost. This will return a creature with a bug head, monster body, and ghost feet. Now, how does the method know which creature will be called for each part? We'll use a series of switch statements. In the build a creature method, create 3 switch statements. Each switch statement should use the value of a parameter, and the cases should call the creature methods. For example, one switch statement will take the value of the head parameter. If the value of the head is ghost, it will output the ghost head method, and so on and so forth. So inside of this, we will do a switch statement based on the value of head. In this switch statement, we will add case. The case where the value is bug. We will first and foremost do bug head, I believe is what we wanted to do, right? Bug head. And then we will, of course, remember our break statements. Finally, or not finally, I should say, but we'll do in the second case where it is monster. And we'll do, instead of bug head, we'll do monster head with a following break statement. And then we'll do monster, or finally we'll do ghost. That's the last one that we actually have to do. Remembering our syntax from the previous lessons, we'll do ghost head. And finally, that break statement. We'll also add that default case where we are just going to break. Right? So that is going to be the first switch statement. Next, we'll do a second switch statement. So we'll do a switch based on body. Open that up, and I am just going to copy and paste this. Obviously, you can do the same thing. It makes the most sense. Save us a lot of time. Finally, we'll do the last switch statement, which is going to be based on the feet. And we'll open that up and repeat again. But again, we're going to actually have to go back and edit this text so that it is bug body. And so we're actually calling the correct thing, because if we called ghost head for every single one, it wouldn't obviously make a lot of sense. We'll also key down to these other ones and add the feet instead, and feet. Okay, perfect. So we've now kind of fixed that up with the switch statements, and now let's see our new method in action. In the main method, delete the original 3 method calls and instead replace it with a build a creature, with ghost, monster, and bug. So let's see how that works. We'll save that now, and we'll do the .NET run and see if that ends up working. Hopefully I didn't mess anything up, and it actually looks like we did perfectly fine, which is really nice to see. We ended up doing very nicely, so we can move on. Our new method actually works very nicely. So it is good practice to save and run your code every few steps to make sure there are no errors. So we did that. We're now going to create a random mode method. Now we will work to automate the process of building a random creature rather than passing in arguments each time we want to build a creature. We will create a custom method that uses the built-in random class and its method .next to randomly assemble a body each time the program is run. Start by creating a custom method known as random mode underneath build a creature method. It won't have any parameters. So we'll go below this one and enter in a new method. Again, we'll do that static. Right now it says it won't return anything, right? It won't have any parameters. For right now, I am going to put void, but we may change that later. We'll do random mode. Open that method up a little bit there. And in this case, it said it takes no parameters. So we are going to click that. Inside of random mode, we need to create an instance of the random class. Don't worry if you're unfamiliar with classes. We are just going to use this once so we can access some of its built-in methods. We'll create an instance of a new random object by adding the following line of code to the program. So again, we don't know what this is doing exactly, but we will create this as they are telling us to. And hopefully that works nicely. So we are going to check that off the list. We're going to save our program here. Next, we want to use the random class's next method to randomly pick a number between 1 and the inclusive of 3. For that reason, we will use a range is 1 through 4, where 1 is the minimum value and 4 is the maximum. Since there are 3 things we want to randomly select, we will call the next method 3 times, each time saving it to a new variable. In total, there should be 3 variables with random value, 1 of the head, 1 of the body, and 1 of the feet. So, for example, to randomly select a value between 1 and 3 for the head, use the following code. So, inside of this random mode, we're going to create a bunch of new variables. First one is going to be an int variable that we are going to call head and kind of just repeat what they are doing here. .next 1 through 4. And we'll do the same thing, but in this case we'll set it equal to body random number .next 1 through 4. And finally we'll do random number for feet, right? 1 through 4. And just so it looks very nice, we'll make sure all that's good. And that is that step done. The next step is to do something similar that what we did in the build a creature method, which is we use a switch statement to determine which creature method to call. However, this time the program should switch based on the integer versus a string. However, if we're basically reusing the same switch statement twice, it makes more sense to turn it into its own function and refactor the code. For now, leave the random method and we'll come back in a little bit. Okay, so we'll use switch statement method to refactor. To start refactoring our code, we'll create a new custom method. So again, we are going to be leaving the random mode method. We'll create a new one that we're, again, just going to define as static void for the time being. And we're going to call this method switch case and give it int parameters named head, body, and feet. So int head, int body, int feet. Let's open that method up a little bit. Inside of the switch case, write 3 switch statements that use the parameter integer values to call the different creature methods. So again, we're going to use something very similar to what we did up here, where we do a switch statement based on the int body or feet, head, body, and feet. So I am going to just snatch this right here and bring it over to this new one. Switch head. Based on head, instead of using case where we have bug, we'll use case where it's 1, case where it's 2, and finally case where it's 3. So now we have ghost head, bug head, monster head, default, and break. So we're going to do the exact same thing, but we're going to copy over this body and feet switch statements, right? So I will do this. We're going to add a lot of text, so we just got to be careful that we're doing this all correctly. Everything looks indented correctly. That's a good way to check. And again, I am going to just replace it with 1, 2, and 3. And again, right here, 1, 2, and 3. So let's save our code here. Hopefully everything like that looks correct. For right now, yes it does. Now inside of the switch case, write 3 statements that use the parameter enter value. Okay, perfect, that's what we did. Test out switch case to make sure it works by calling it in main. So we'll go back up to main here, and instead of using build a creature, we'll just do that switch case. For example, 111 should print the complete ghost to the console. So let's save that and write .NET run, and hopefully we didn't make any big mistakes. Of course we did. We are missing this on line 174. So we're missing a thing, which is amazing. Something tells me that it's something right here. This one is going all the way back up to that first switch statement, which isn't just isn't correct, right? So we're going to get rid of that one here and instead put it below right here. So first switch statement, second switch statement, third switch statement. This third switch statement has that. Do I have an ending to static void? Where is that? All the way at the bottom. So obviously that's where the mistake has been created. So let's add it off the bottom here. I'm going to re-indent that, and then hopefully now this works a little bit better. Always got to be careful with that indentation there. So let's do .NET run one more time, and it's expecting another one of those. Let's match up and make sure that we have all of our stuff. So we have our first, it looks like that's correct, that's correct, that's correct, that's correct, but we don't have one at the end. And why is that? I must have copied and pasted it away somehow. Not exactly sure how. When I go to 176, that only goes up to class program. So we'll need to exit once more. And if I add that back now, that does it. So hopefully that fixes the little error that little bug that we're running into. If I do .NET run now and the local function is declared but never used, warning, the local function quick switch case is declared but never used. Okay, the name switch case did not exist in the current context on line 9. It's saying that switch case is not defined, but I have it defined here. Static void switch case. Gonna have to do a little bit of thinking here to try and remedy the situation. This is what ends up happening when you copy paste a lot of times, so don't copy paste. Learn from my mistakes here, and yeah, be better. So it's just gonna take me a second to try and remedy the situation. When I open main, Build a creature doesn't have... Okay. Okay, that ends off build a creature. So we have main closed. We have build a creature closed. Random mode is closed. Right? If we go into switch case, it's opened and it is closed as well. So switch case is closed as well. If we go into this, each one of those is opened and closed. But now we have, what, an extra one right there. Let's save it one more time and see if that remedied the situation. And we're starting to lag just a little bit here. Okay, that ended up remedying the situation. Now we have printed out the full ghost here. I am going to just relaunch now that everything is saved so that we're not lagging. Okay, cool. So we can now continue by, we tested out switch case. Now return to the random mode method. If we go back to random mode, which is right here, call the switch case method after the int variable definitions. So we'll call the switch case method. Make sure to pass the variables head, body, and feet as arguments into switch case. That way, each time we run the program, a new set of numbers will be passed in and the output will change. Okay, let's now go back, and instead of switch case this time, we'll just call random mode method. And I don't believe we'll have to put any arguments into it. I'm hoping that when we just call random method, it will do something when I do .NET run. Perfect. If we do .NET run one more time, I'm hoping we see something a little bit different, and we do. Let's just do it one more time. Perfect. We end up getting 3 completely different creatures. That's where I'm going to end off the project. There's some other additional things that you can do here where you can create a translate to number method. That's not exactly what we want in the scope of this project here, but we have completed this project. And so we've created some nice fun creatures here and doing that all using methods. So I am going to quickly just go through here and tick off these boxes. And hit next. So I believe that's going to be the end of the video. We might actually have one more thing here. Nope, we have alternate expressions next. So if I go into here, in the next video, it'll be the last part of methods. We'll be introduced to alternate expressions. If you guys did enjoy this video, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.